This video is brought to you by the official Flashy Instagram. Follow Flashy Magazine for all things music, pop culture, and fashion. 2020 has been the longest year of my life. I don't really think there's a word to encapsulate all that happened this year, and frankly, I don't feel like going down memory lane to relive it all. So for the sake of everyone's peace, let's just label 2020 eventful. But throughout all the tension, darkness, and chaos this year entailed, there was one thing I could always count on to bring my spirits back up, and that's music. There were so many good pop albums that dropped this year that helped me get through the months of isolation alone and uncertain about the state of the world. In this video, we're going to be ranking and discussing my top 10 pop albums released this year. Let's get into it. First up, we have Ariana Grande's 6th studio album, Positions. Coming from the heels of her magnum opus, Thank You Next, I didn't really know how Ariana was going to follow that up. Thank You Next was such a pop cultural moment in history and showcased Ariana's state of mind right after the traumatic death of her boyfriend Mac Miller and broken off engagement with Pete Davidson. Luckily, Ariana didn't let us down for Positions. Over 15 tracks, Ariana dives deep into the complexities of her current relationship and how her past trauma is affecting her. I love that this album showcased that trauma isn't something that can be easily cured or fixed, but is instead something you have to learn how to live with. The record is a mix of sexual songs like 3435 and Nasty, while also including slow R&B jams like Off the Table and Safety Net. I wouldn't necessarily say that this album is a step up from Thank You Next, but I think it's a nice palette cleanser for whatever sound she chooses to go for next. In 9th place, we have Fake It Flowers by Biba Doobie. Biba Doobie is an artist most known for the remix of her song Coffee that went crazy viral on TikTok, but she honestly deserves so much more credit than that. Every time I listen to this album, I am transported to a 2000s coming-of-age movie. This album has such a nostalgic feel with the pop-punk aesthetics, and reminds me a lot of artists like Avril Lavigne and Michelle Branch. Despite the happy and nostalgic feel of the single tracks, this album dives deep into some pretty dark stuff, like childhood drama, bullying, and self-harm. My favorite tracks off this album go to Care, Worth It, and Sorry. In 8th place, we have Charli XCX's album, How I'm Feeling Now. After releasing her critically acclaimed self-titled album just last year, Charli got right back to work once quarantine started, and took the time to really include her fans in the process of making this album, by allowing us to pick designs, song titles, and even lyrics. Despite being recorded all at home, this album sounds just as futuristic, industrial, and danceable as her last record. I love that this album was a bit more introspective for Charli, as she opens up about her rocky relationship with her boyfriend on songs like Enemy, Forever, and 7 Years. This is definitely a top-tier Charli album, and just the fact that she whipped this up in 2 months is insane to me, and shows that Charli is an unstoppable pop icon. Next up, we have Tame Impala's The Slow Rush. This album came out at the top of the year before any of the chaos erupted, but it's crazy how much more meaningful it has become throughout the year. The whole record is a psychedelic, hypnotic, introspective piece of art that lyrically focuses on the concept of time and the acceptance that it's always moving forward. I know for me, I constantly feel as though my life is never in order and that time is slowly slipping away, which is a paralyzing feeling. But this album reminded me that I can't be held back by my past, and that I also can't be fearful of the future, but instead that I should use my energy to live in the present. Over the gleaming synths, psychedelic guitars, and Kevin's falsetto, Kevin gave me the comfort that I needed to know that everything was gonna be okay. In 5th place, we have The Weeknd's album, After Hours. On this record, one of R&B's most innovative minds reinvents himself yet again, as he takes on the 80s synth-pop sound. After Hours is dark and moody, as Abel is tackling themes of loneliness, heartbreak, and plain fuckboy behavior. I think there's only one unspoken rule about listening to The Weeknd's album, and that's that it has to be done during the night, cause it just hits different. My favorite tracks off this record go to Save Your Tears, Faith, and Scared to Live. In 4th place, we have Taylor Swift's surprise album, Folklore. The The fact that this is the same artist who was releasing songs like Shake It Off and Reputation is insane to me. Taylor has yet again made another genre switch that has improved her career drastically. Her songwriting and storytelling is really what's highlighted on this album, and it's some of the best in her whole career. The instrumentals are soft and subtle, as they carry the listener through themes of heartbreak, escapism, and nostalgia. I feel like this album is something that I would have studied in my high school English class, just because of how poetic the lyrics are. If anything, this album just solidified Taylor's legacy as one of the greatest pop lyricists ever. In third place, we have the posthumous album from Mac Miller, Circles. Admittedly, when Mac was alive, I was never a huge fan of his music. I only knew his biggest track, and that was Donald Trump. But after his passing, I wanted to give this album a chance, and boy am I glad that I did. This is definitely one of those albums that I play on Sundays and take the time to reflect on life, as Mac's blissful voice and subdued instrumentals take me on a spiritual journey. I know that this isn't directly a pop album, but it has a lot of funk and synth pop elements, so if you're into that, you should definitely check this album out. I promise you won't be disappointed. In second place, we have Dua Lipa's sophomore album, Future Nostalgia. Dua is one of those artists that I think most pop music fans ignored because they didn't feel like her first album was different enough. But Dua completely changes that perception with this record. Future Nostalgia is an explosion of funk, disco, and house. With no collaboration, Dua keeps you engaged and enthralled the full 37 minutes you're listening to this record. My favorite tracks off this go to Don't Start Now, Levitation, and Pretty Please. In first place, we have Rina Sawayama's debut album, Sawayama. I don't think I've played an album more than this masterpiece right here. On paper, this album sounds like a mess, cause it's literally every genre mixed into one, arena rock, hyperpop, and even a little bit of 2000s R&B. But somehow Rina pulls it off and makes such a cohesive record with messages of acceptance, culture, and capitalism. The level of dedication and attention to detail this album has, especially as a debut, is honestly comparable to Lady Gaga's The Fame. And I think Rina will have the same effect as Gaga, because Rina is revolutionizing the pop game and creating something fresh and new. My top 3 from this album go to Who's Gonna Save You Now, Chosen Family, and Paradisen. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your opinion on the top 10 pop albums of the year, so definitely comment down your list down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, subscribe, and share. If you would like to support the channel in any way, then consider becoming a patron. For a monthly contribution, you get some cool perks, like watching videos early or voting on video topics. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys with the next video real soon.